Good afternoon and welcome to the first of many events being held in recognition of Banned Books Week. My name is Bridget Pride and I am the Library and Information Science Student Association President. This year, student associations from the School of Library and Information Science and Beatley Library have banded together to celebrate intellectual freedom and free and open access to information. Every year, hundreds of books are banned and challenged in public libraries, schools, school libraries, and special libraries by patrons, parents, and administrative boards. Most frequently, materials are banned for offensive language, religious views, LGBT content, especially in the case of transgendered characters, violence, nudity, rape, and a host of other reasons. We are here today to give words to these books. All week, I invite you to select a banned or challenged book to read during our Lunchtime Read Aloud series. We will be here from 12 p.m. to 2 p.m., Monday through Friday, all week, celebrating our freedom to read. In addition, please consider attending some of the other events happening this week, including a zine workshop tonight, a faculty panel tomorrow, a poetry slam on Wednesday, a movie night on Thursday, and an after-hours party on Friday. In addition, you're invited to partake in the photo booth set up in the library and the scavenger hunt taking place on social media. Please seek out more information for these events on our Facebook page and the LISA blog. For now, I'd like to get our lunchtime reading started with a passage from one of my favorite challenge books for colored girls who have considered suicide when the rainbow is enough. Dark phrases of womanhood, of never having been a girl. Half notes scattered without rhythm, no tune. Distraught laughter fallen over a black girl's shoulders. It's funny, it's hysterical. The melodylessness of her dance. Don't tell nobody, don't tell a soul. She's dancing on beer cans and shingles. This must be the Spook House. Another song with no singers, lyrics, no voices, and interrupted solos, unseen performances. Are we ghouls, children of horror, the joke? Don't tell nobody, don't tell a soul. Are we animals? Have we gone crazy? I can't hear anything but maddening screams and the soft strains of death. And you promised me, somebody, anybody, sing a black girl song, bring her out to know herself, to know you, but sing her rhythms, caring, struggle, hard times, sing her song of life. She's been dead so long, closed in silence so long, she doesn't know the sound of her own voice, her infinite beauty. She's half notes scattered without rhythm, no tune. Sing her sighs. Sing the song of her possibilities. Sing a righteous gospel. Let her be born. Let her be born and handled warmly. I'm outside Chicago, Detroit, Houston, Baltimore, San Francisco, Manhattan, St. Louis. And this is for colored girls who have considered suicide, but moved to the ends of their own rainbows. You're it.
So I'm going to be reading from The Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian by Sherman Alexie. I'm just going to read the first chapter, which is pretty short. The Black Eye of the Month Club. I was born with water on the brain. Okay, so that's not exactly true. I was actually born with too much cerebral spinal fluid inside my skull. But cerebral spinal fluid is just the doctor's fancy way of saying brain grease. And brain grease works inside the lobes like car grease works inside an engine. It keeps things running smooth and fast. But weirdo me, I was born with too much grease inside my skull, and it got all thick and muddy and disgusting, and it only mucked up the works. My thinking and breathing and living engine slowed down and flooded. My brain was drowning in grease. But that makes the whole thing sound weirdo and funny, like my brain was a giant French fry So it seems more serious and poetic and accurate to say I was born with water on the brain. Okay, so maybe that's not a very serious way to say it either. Maybe the whole thing is weird and funny. But geez, did my mother and father and big sister and grandma and cousins and aunts and uncles think it was funny when the doctors cut open my little skull and sucked out all that extra water with some tiny vacuum? I was only 6 months old, and I was supposed to croak during the surgery. And even if I somehow survived the mini Hoover, I was supposed to suffer serious brain damage during the procedure and live the rest of my life as a vegetable. Well, I obviously survived the surgery. I wouldn't be writing this if I didn't. But I have all sorts of physical problems that are directly the result of my brain damage. First of all, I ended up having 42 teeth. A typical human has 32, right? But I had 42. 10 more than usual. 10 more than normal. 10 teeth past human. My teeth got so crowded that I could barely close my mouth. I went to Indian Health Service to get some teeth pulled so I could eat normally, not like some slobbering vulture. But the Indian Health Service funded major dental work only once a year, so I had to have all 10 extra teeth pulled in one day. And what's more, our white dentists believed that Indians only felt half as much pain as white people did, so he only gave us half the Novocaine. What a bastard, huh? Indian Health Service also funded eyeglass purchases only once a year and offered one style, those thick, ugly, black plastic ones. My brain damage left me nearsighted in one eye and farsighted in the other, so my ugly glasses were all lopsided because my eyes were so lopsided. I get headaches because my eyes are like enemies, you know? Like they used to be married to each other, but now they hate each other's guts. And I started wearing glasses when I was 3, so I ran around the res looking like a 3-year-old Indian grandpa. And oh, I was skinny. I'd turn sideways and disappear. But my hands and feet were huge. My feet were the size 11 in 3rd grade. With my big feet and pencil body, I looked like a capital L walking down the road. And my skull was enormous. Epic.
Hello, I'm Des, and I'm going to be reading from Sandra Cisneros' The House on Mango Street. The section's called Kathy, Queen of Cats. She says, I am the great-great-grand cousin of the Queen of France. She lives upstairs, over there, next door to Joe, the baby grabber. Keep away from him, she says. He's full of danger. Benny and Blanca own the corner store. They're okay, except don't lean on the candy counter. 2 girls raggedy as rats live across the street. You don't want to know them. Edna is the lady who owns the building next to you. She used to own a building big as a whale, but her brother sold it. Their mother said, no, don't ever sell it. I won't. And then she closed her eyes and he sold it. Alicia is stuck up since she went to college. She used to like me, but now she doesn't. Kathy, who's Queen of Cats, has cats, and cats. Baby cats, big cats, skinny cats, big cats. Cats asleep like little donuts. Cats on top of the refrigerator. Cats taking a walk on the dinner table. Her house is like cat heaven. You want a friend? She says. Okay, I'll be your friend, but only till next Tuesday. That's when we move away. Got to. And then as if she forgot I just moved in, she says the neighborhood is getting bad.
Oh my god, I can't leave.
Kathy's father will have to fly to France one day and find her great distant grand cousin on her father's side and inherit the family house. So how do I know this is so? She told me so. In the meantime, they'll just have to move a little farther north from Mango Street, a little farther away every time people like us keep moving in.
Or wherever.
Okay.
And the passage you'd like to read.
I have not read this book in forever, so I don't know. August 1986. 1. Park. XTC was no good for drowning out the morons at the back of the bus. Park pressed his headphones into his ears. Tomorrow he was going to bring Skinny Puppy or the Misfits, or maybe he'd make a special bus tape that was as much screaming and wailing on it as possible. He could get back to New Wave in November, after he got his driver's license. His parents had already said Park could have his mom's Impala, and he'd been saving up for a new tape deck. Once he started driving to school, He could listen to whatever he wanted, or nothing at all. And he'd get to sleep in an extra 20 minutes. That doesn't exist, somebody shouted behind him. It so fucking does, Steve shouted back. Drunken monkey style, man. It's really a fucking thing. You can kill somebody with it. You're full of shit. You're full of shit, Steve said. Park, hey Park. Park heard him, but didn't answer. Sometimes if you ignored Steve for a minute, he moved on to someone else, knowing that was 80% of surviving when Steve was your neighbor. The other 20% was just keeping your head down, which Park had momentarily forgotten. A ball of paper hit him in the back of the head. Those were my human growth and development notes, dicklet, Tina said. I'm sorry, baby, Steve said. I'll teach you all about human growth and development. What do you need to know? Teach your drunken monkey style, somebody said. Park, Steve shouted. Park pulled down his headphones and turned to the back of the bus. Steve was holding Port in the last seat. Even sitting, his head practically touched the roof. Steve always looked like he was surrounded by doll furniture. He looked like a grown man since the 7th grade, and that was before he grew a full beard. Slightly before. Sometimes Park wondered if Steve was with Tina because she made him look even more like a monster. Most of the girls from the flats were small, but Tina couldn't be 5 feet, massive hair included. Once, back in middle school, some guy had tried to give Steve shit about how he better not get Tina pregnant, because if he did, his giant babies would kill her. They'll bust out of her stomach like aliens, the guy said. Steve broke his little finger on the guy's face. When Park's dad heard, he'd said, somebody needs to teach that Murphy kid how to make a fist. But Park hoped nobody would. The guy who Steve hit couldn't open his eyes for a week. Park tossed Tina her balled-up homework. She caught it. Park, Steve said, tell Mikey about drunken monkey karate. I don't know anything about it, Park shrugged. But it exists, right? I guess I've heard of it. There, Steve said. He looked for something to throw at Mikey, but couldn't find anything. He pointed instead. I fucking told you. What the fuck does Sheridan know about Kung Fu? Mikey said. Are you retarded? Steve said. His name's Chinese. Mikey looked at Park carefully. Park smiled and narrowed his eyes. Yeah, I guess I see it, Mikey said. I always thought you were Mexican. Shit, Mikey said. Steve said. You're fucking racist. She's not Chinese, Tina said. She's Korean. Who is? Park's mom. Park's mom had been cutting Tina's hair since grade school. They had both had the exact same hairstyle. Long spiral perms with tall, feathered bangs. She's fucking hot is what she is, Steve said, cracking himself up. No offense, Park. Park managed another smile and slunk back into his seat, putting his headphones back and cranking up the volume. He could still hear Steve and Mikey, 4 seats behind him. Well, what's the fucking point? Mikey asked. Dude, would you want to fight a drunken monkey? They're fucking huge. Like every which way but loose, man. Imagine the bastard losing his shit on you. Park noticed the new girl about the same time everybody else did. She was standing at the front of the bus, next to the first available seat. There was a kid sitting there by himself, a freshman. He put his bag down on the seat and then looked the other way. All down the aisles, anybody who was sitting alone moved to the edge of their seats. Park heard Tina snicker. She lived for this stuff. The new girl took a deep breath and stepped further down the aisles. Nobody would look at her. Park tried not to. But it was kind of a train wreck eclipse situation. The girl looked exactly like exactly the sort of person this would happen to. Not just new, but big and awkward, with crazy hair, bright red on top and curly. She was dressed like she wanted people to look at her. Or maybe like she didn't get what a mess she was. She had on a plaid shirt, a man shirt, with half a dozen weird necklaces hanging around her neck and scarves wrapped around her wrist. She reminded Park of a scarecrow, or one of the trouble dolls his mom kept on her dresser. Like someone that wouldn't survive in the wild. The bus stopped again, and a bunch of more kids got on. They pushed past the girl, knocking into her and dropping into their own seats. That was the thing. Everybody on the bus already had a seat. They'd all claimed one on the first day of school. People like Park, who were lucky enough to have a whole wide seat to themselves, weren't going to give that up now, especially not for someone like this. Park looked back at the girl. She was just standing there. Hey you, the bus driver yelled. Sit down. The girl started moving towards the back of the bus, right into the belly of the beast. God, Park thought. Stop. Turn around. He could feel Steve and Mikey licking their chops as she got closer. He tried again to look away. The girl spotted an empty seat just across from her. Her face lit with relief, and she hurried towards it. Hey, Tina yelled sharply. The girl kept moving. Hey, Tina said. Bozo. Steve started laughing. His friends fell in a few seconds behind him. You can't sit there, Tina said. That's Michaela's seat. The girl stopped and looked up at Tina, then looked back at the empty seat. Sit down, the driver bellowed from the front. I have to sit somewhere, the girl said to Tina in a firm, calm voice. Not my problems, Tina snapped. The bus lurched, and the girl rocked back to keep from falling. Park tried to turn up the volume on his Walkman, but it was already all the way up. He looked back at the girl. It looked like she was going to start crying. Before he'd even decided to do it, Park scooted towards the window. Sit down, he said. It came out angrily. The girl turned to him, like she couldn't tell whether or not he was a jerk or what Jesus fuck. Park said softly, nodding to the space next to him. Just sit down. The girl sat down. She didn't say anything, thank God. She didn't thank him, but she left 6 inches of space on the seats between them. Park turned toward the plexiglass window and waited for the world of suck to hit the fan.
Any preamble? No, just read.
Whatever.
Tell us what you're reading.
Yeah.
I'm reading Make Something Up, Stories You Can't Unread by Chuck Palahniuk. I've never seen this book before, but I'm going to read it. My old man. He makes everything into a big joke. What can I say? The old man loves to get a laugh. Growing up, half the time I didn't have a clue what his jokes were about, but I laughed anyways. Down at the barbershop, it didn't matter how many guys my father let take cuts ahead of me. He just wanted to sit there all Saturday and crack the door. Make folks bust together. Getting his hair cut was definitely a low priority. He says, stop me if you've heard this one before. The way my old man tells it, he walks into the oncologist's office and says, after the chemotherapy, I will be able to will I be able to play the violin? In response, the oncologist says, it's metastasized? Metastasized. That's a word I didn't know. Sorry. You've got 6 months to live. And working his eyebrows like Groucho Marx, tapping the ash from an invisible cigar, my old man says, 6 months. I want a second opinion. So the oncologist says, okay, you've got cancer and your jokes stink. So they do chemotherapy and they give him some radiation, like they do even if the shit burns him up so bad inside. He tells me that taking a piss is like passing razor blades. Still, every Saturday, down by the barbershop, he's telling jokes. Even now, he's bald as a cue ball. I mean, he's skinny as a bald skeleton. And he's getting to haul around one of those cylinders of oxygen under pressure, like some little version of a ball and chain. He walked into the barber shop dragging that pressurized cylinder of oxygen with a tube of it going up and looping around his nose, over his ears, around his bald head, and says, just a little off the top, please. And folks laugh. Understand me, my old man is no Uncle Milton. He's no Edgar Bergen. The man's skinny as a Halloween skeleton, and bald, and going to be dead in 6 weeks. So it don't matter what he says. Folks are going to hee-haw like donkeys just out of their genuine affection. But seriously, I'm not doing him justice. It's my fault if this doesn't come across. But my old man is funnier than he sounds. Maybe his sense of humor is a talent I didn't inherit. Back when I was his little Charlie McCarthy, the whole time I was growing up, he used to ask me, knock knock. I'd say, who's there? I'd say, old lady. I'd say, old lady who? He'd say, wow, I didn't think you could yodel. Me, I didn't get it. I was so stupid. I was 7 years old, still stuck in first grade. I didn't know Switzerland from Shinola. But I want my old man to love me, so I learned to laugh. Whatever he says, I laugh. And by old lady, my guess is he means my mom who ran away and left us. All's my old man will say about her now is that she was a real looker who just couldn't take a joke. Yet, she just was not a good sport. He used to ask me, when that Vinnie Van Gogh cut off his ear and sent it to the whore he was so crazy about, how'd he send her? Punchline is, he sent her ear mail. But being 7 years old, I was still stuck back not knowing who Van Gogh is or what's a whore. That nothing kills a joke faster than asking my old man to explain himself. So when my old man says, what do you do when you cross a pig with Count Dracula? I knew never to ask, what's a Count Dracula? Just a big laugh when he says a vampire. And when he says knock knock and I say who's there, he'll say the radio and I'll say radio who. He's already started to bust a gut when he says radio, not just radio, not I'm going to come in your mouth. Then what the hell, I just keep laughing. My whole growing up, I figure I'm just too ignorant to appreciate a good joke. Me, my teachers still haven't covered long division and all the multiplication tables, so it's not my fault. It's not my old man's fault. Just don't know what's come. My old lady who's abandoned us says that she hated that joke, so maybe I inherited her lack of humor. But love. I mean, you have to love your old man. I mean, after you're born, it's not like you get a choice. Nobody wants to see their old man breathing out of some tank, going into a hospital to die sky high on morphine. Eating a bite of that red-flavored jello they serve for dinner. Stop me if I've already told you this much, but my old man gets that prostate cancer like it's not even cancer because it takes 20, 30 years before we even know he's so sick. And the next thing I know, I'm trying to remember all the stuff he taught me. Like if you'd spray WD-40 on the shovel blade before you dig a hole, the digging will go a lot easier. He taught me how to squeeze a trigger instead of pulling it and wrecking my aim. He taught me to remove blood stains, he taught me jokes, lots of jokes. And sure, he's no Robin Williams. But I watched this movie once about Robin Williams. He gets dressed up in a red rubber ball in his ears, this big rainbow-colored afro wig, these big clown shoes with a fake carnation stuck in his buttonhole, and his shirt squirts water, and the guy's a hotshot doctor who makes his little kids with cancer laugh so hard they stop dying. Understand me, these bald skeletons who look worse off than my old man, they get healthy. That whole movie is based on a true story.
Yes.
Yeah?
Hi, my name is Abby Sandoval-Foso, and I am going to be reading from When I Was Puerto Rican by Esmeralda Santiago. The yard next door was decorated with gold-colored ribbons strung on tall bamboo stems. They waved in the breeze, and flashes of sun winked from within, like stars inside a yellow sky. Someone on the other side of the tall fence raised a bamboo stick with more ribbons attached to it, only these were wet and shimmered brighter than the ones already up. Smoke rose from the front of the yard, along with the delicious smell of oregano and garlic, rosemary, fennel, toasted annatto. "What are those, Mommy?" I asked one morning when the entire yard looked like a sea of yellow, rising and falling in bulbous waves. "They're pig's guts," she said without looking up from her darning. "Yuck," she laughed. "They're used to make pork sausages. Our neighbors cook meat and spices, and then they stuff them into the pig guts. We had some yesterday, remember? But pig guts are full of... They wash the guts out carefully, and they hang them up to dry so that the sun cures them." It was hard to imagine that the delicious sausages I had just the day before were encased in the small intestines of a pig. What else were in those sausages? The heart, the liver, chunks of meat, rice, spices, and some blood. Blood? To make them solid so they don't fall apart. We eat blood? "What do you think morcillas are made of?" she asked with a laugh. "Don't tell me, I don't want to know." "Okay," she went back to her sewing. Morcillas were one of my favorite treat foods. They were like black sausages, which were roasted or fried. I especially liked the ones with tiny bits of hot peppers crushed into the meat. "All right, tell me." "I thought you didn't want to know. Is it pig guts?" "Yes, the outside. What's on the inside?" "Little pieces of meat, some rice, spices, and blood?" "Mostly blood. Some people call it blood putty." "Ay, Dios mío, Mommy, why do we have to eat that stuff?" "Because once you kill the animal, it's a sin to waste anything that can be eaten. Besides, it tastes good." She winced. "Are you okay, Mommy?" "Yes, it's just your babysitter or brother swimming around." "Can I feel it?" She took my hand and placed it on her round belly, which rested on her thighs like a giant water balloon. I put my head to it, my hands on either side. A giant wave spread from one end of her belly to the other, and I heard water gurgling as the baby swam around in her private pool.
Hit the record button again.
The Sun Also Rises by Ernest Hemingway, Chapter 1. Robert Kahn was one middleweight boxing champion of Princeton. You think that I'm very much impressed by that as a boxing title, but it meant a lot to Kahn. He cared nothing for boxing. In fact, he disliked it, but he learned it painfully and thoroughly to counteract the feeling of inferiority and shyness he had felt from being treated as a Jew at Princeton. There was a certain inner comfort in knowing he could knock down anybody who was snooty to him. Although being very shy and thoroughly nice boy, he never fought except in the gym. He was Spider Kelly's star pupil. Spider Kelly taught all his young gentlemen to box like featherweights, no matter whether they weighed 105 or 205 pounds. But it seemed to fit Kahn. He was really very fast. He was so good that Spider promptly overmatched him and got his nose permanently flattened. This increased Kahn's distaste for boxing, but it gave him a certain satisfaction of some strange sort, and it certainly improved his nose. In his last year at Princeton, he read too much and took to wearing spectacles. I never met anyone of his class who remembered him. They did not even remember that he was middleweight boxing champion. I mistrust all frank and simple people, especially when their stories hold together. I always had a suspicion that perhaps Robert Kahn had never been middleweight boxing champion, and perhaps a horse had stepped on his face, or that maybe his mother had been frightened or seen something, or that he had maybe bumped into something as a young child. But I finally had someone verify the story that Spider Kelly not only remembered Kahn, he often wondered what had become of him. Robert Kahn was a member, through his father, of one of the richest Jewish families in New York, and through his mother to one of the oldest. At the military school where he prepped, Princeton played a very good end of the football team. No one had made him race conscious. No one had ever made him feel he was a Jew, and hence any different from anyone else, until he went to Princeton. He was a nice boy, a friendly boy, very shy, and it made him bitter. He took it out in boxing, and he came out of Princeton with painful self-consciousness and a flat nose. He was married by the first girl who was nice to him. He was married 5 years, had 3 children, lost most of $50,000 his father left him, the balance of the estate having gone to his mother, hardened into a rather unattractive mold under domestic unhappiness with a rich wife. And just when he had made up his mind to leave the wife, she left him and went off with a miniature painter. As he'd been thinking for months about leaving his wife, and had not done it because it would be too cruel to deprive her of himself, her departure was a very healthful shock. The divorce was arranged and Robert Kahn went out to the coast. In California, he fell among literary people, and as he still had a little of the $50,000 left, in a short time, he was backing a review of the arts. The review commenced publication in Carmel, California, and finished in Provincetown, Massachusetts. By that time, Kahn, who had been regarded purely as an angel and whose name had appeared on the editorial page merely as a member of the advisory board, had become the sole editor. It was his money, and he discovered he liked the authority of editing. He was sorry when the magazine became too expensive, and he had to give it up.